Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of a Bloop and a Blast baseball podcast. I'm the Bloop, he's the Blast. My name's Big Sexy. Welcome. Hughesy, what's going on, mate? How are you?
Not doing well, Bloop. Just getting ready for a nice day off tomorrow over here in Melbourne. But we have got the biggest name in Australian baseball.
Huge.
Right, huge name right
Biggest.
here. We have CEO of Baseball WA, Baseball Ops, Perth Heat, legend, Lachlan Dale. Welcome to the podcast, mate.
Hey, good pump up, Luke. Thank you, guys, and looking forward to having
Lachy.
a chat.
Good to have you here, mate.
Mate, it's everyone knows that we are best mates, and I know you've been talking about it. You're pretty upset that you're number 7 on the podcast list.
Bit disappointing. I thought when I came up with the idea driving across the Nullarbor, I thought I might get a sniff in the top shelf of the list, but apparently not. Just fall down the pecking order, and you had no one else to come on, so I finally got a call. It's good.
How many hours of chit chat around the podcast do you reckon we had when we drove across the Nullarbor this year?
10 to 15, I would have thought, of how to do it, what to talk about, some topics, who should get. Yeah.
My biggest issue was who I wanted my little co-host to be, and we had to whittle down the numbers. Everyone said no, and then all of a sudden, Sexy stepped in and said, "Yeah, I'll be the Bloop in the podcast."
Low key, though, I remember telling you last year you need to do a podcast. And you said, I got a mate in Melbourne. I said, use him. He'll be great. And then you come back to me with your tail between your legs and said, Sexy, I want you to do it. And I said,
mate, you're at the top. You're at the top of the list. But Lachy clearly wasn't at the top of the list of the podcasts.
No, absolutely not.
Locky's too busy. Locky's too busy running Baseball WA. Am I
Plenty
wrong?
of time for you boys.
As your wife's just texted me too, so she's probably just in another room there at the house, mate, just probably listening into all the stuff you talk about.
No, you got me on a night. I've got the kids at home, so I'm at my in-laws in their computer room over here. I just finished a workout on the Peloton, so I moved that out of the way. And I thought I'd jump on the call with you guys and let the kids not distract me and jump in the room to annoy us. So, all clear, and I think it's got to get home before Sharris goes to netball. So as long as you sort that out, we'll all be okay.
Neil and Trishy, parents of Dean White, baseball player, also runs Diamond Fitness currently. So Lockie did marry Shazza. We are kind of, what you say, best friends, have been for many years. I think our friendship's going on now. What do we got? 25? Be around 25 years.
Probably late 90s in the early start of the waste days, I reckon, 15, 16 years old, something like that. So fair few years under the belt, which is I'd like to say it's a pleasure, but it's a bit of a chore at sometimes, but that's okay.
We could go in so many directions on this podcast, but we'll talk some baseball. No, mate. No. There's a bit of fun.
He's got a collared shirt on too. Yeah, I love it. Nice, Lockie.
He did text me and say, should I put the Baseball WA one on? Should I go casual? And I was like, nah.
He's a suit. He's a suit
and tie guy. Talking about a suit and tie guy, mate. Obviously, you've done so much for baseball within Western Australia. We'll kick it off with the fact of, you played for the Healers, you represented the Heat, many years ago. There's a similar kind of, I guess, backstory to Davo. Within, you were a player, you moved into administration, and I think it was 2010. Is that correct, mate?
Yep, started in 2010. So, yeah, played for, I don't know, nearly 10 years, something like that, for WA and the Perth Heat brand when it relaunched in 2006. And then did a little bit of coaching, and then once the new ABL started up officially started up in that 2010-2011 season, that's when I joined Baseball WA in a GM of operations, so to speak. A little bit with the clubs and competitions, a little bit with the Perth Heat, a little bit at the stadium. So bit of a Johnny everything at that point when I first got involved, and had no idea what I was doing. But I know it's a sport that we all love, I guess, and I loved. So you just figure it out as you went, and then hopefully try to improve it over the years, and hopefully it's in a bit better place than it was back then.
So before you jump in, Sexy, I know Jeff Hooker had a lot to do with bringing you in at that time. I mean, he was running Baseball WA as a CEO. How did that all come about? With the original conversation, like, hey mate, are you free? Like, what are you doing? Would you like to come and get involved?
Yeah, so when I finished up playing over in the US, I came back and started working at Telstra for a few years, selling phones and internet plans, and the wonderful Foxtel when it was launched then, and that took on. So I did that for 4 or 5 years, and then Jeff actually was volunteering as probably a quasi-volunteer GM CEO of Baseball WA. Baseball in WA and probably around the country was at its flat spot, 2003 to 2006, 2007, just on the back of feeling the effects of the original ABL, to be honest. And so Jeff was working there as a volunteer to try and get it back up and running. He obviously has fielder's choice, so obviously there's a common interest in that space as well. And then he actually got me out of Telstra and actually working for Wilson Sporting Goods, selling golf gear to golf clubs. And I didn't do the baseball account, so I didn't have to deal with fielders. But Jeff got me into that space, and then I worked a day a week at Fielder's Choice, which I think was probably all the grand plan of Jeff to go, if we can get him out of Telstra and into the sporting goods. And then when the ABL came up in 2010 and relaunched, Jeff probably needed some extra help. Tonks was doing a lot of the lifting and shifting from Baseball WA and the Heat in those formative years, 2006 to 2010-ish, something like that, but even prior to that. And then Tonks moved on to hockey, and the position opened up, and Jeff said, well, we'd like you to step into that role as ops guy, and that's probably how it began. Yeah.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, there you go. So I mean, you've obviously taken over in such a it's been quite a successful period since the new ABL has launched. I mean, how has that been for you as on the administration end? I mean, it has to help when the team's doing well on the field, right?
Yeah, that's always positive, and that's probably the best way you can market baseball in the state and in Australia is really through your ABL franchise and your ABL team. So I think WA has done it better than anybody else, and that was part of that strategic direction from Jeff and the team back then. It's working hand in hand with the state association and the pro sports team, which arguably was a WA rep team of all the local players, all the local talent, coming out through that high performance program and the waste days under Don Cole's stewardship as a coach and a leader from he must have been there 15 years before the ABL started up again. So I think from that period of time, it's sort of Baseball WA ran the competitions, and the Perth Heat was essentially its marketing arm to be able to put the team together. And we're really fortunate, and I think I've heard on previous podcasts, you can't underestimate the value of a bit of a changing of the guard that 2006, 2007 when Hughesy actually took the team. I think we lost every game, but it was lost with a bunch of young kids with super talent, and a lot of the older guys that sort of finished up from that original ABL, it's sort of all semi-retired and they were off, and the changing of the guard sort of occurred. We lost every game, we got smashed, but I think that sort of set the tone of building a bit of that backbone, bit of that core between the crew that I think went on to win 6 out of 8 championships. Losing through tough times and sort of built the adversity and the build of that toughness, both mentally, physically, and obviously the talent was there. I remember sitting in the change rooms. It would have been in that season, and pretty sure Jelksy went on his rampage and said we're all a bunch of prima donnas and don't know anything about the game of baseball. Called us all out because we all thought we were better than we were, even though we're losing by 5 or 6 runs or 10 runs most games. But you look back at those years, and then the history is sort of set in stone. 6 out of the next 8 championships. The D-Sands, and I'm going to lose some people, TK's, Hughesy, Matty Kennelly's, Scotty Mitch, and then you get the Sawpolls, and these guys start coming in, and you start seeing back at Schmitty as well. Schmitty, always forgotten Schmitty, the oldest young guy going around.
Lammy.
Yeah. I think Brendan Wise, we had at one point in time, I think from memory, it was about 8 guys from AA to AAA or the big leagues in that WA Perth Heat roster, born and bred, coming through that HP system. And you can ask anyone around the country, that was probably the pinnacle of to get the perfect group all interlocked and all worked well together. And all the talent, both pitchers, both offense and defense. And it was just a real clear synergy between all of the guys. You had leaders young leaders running the franchise, arguably, and then you top it up with a couple of imports, you top it up with a couple of pro guys. I think we flew in Nick Kimpton from ACT one year, and he didn't take any batting practice, never trained, and hit 500 and won the Helms Award. So it's just a bizarre time back then. But that's how it was, I guess. Is you just find a way to play, and I guess I think one of the coolest things is we've been really fortunate is that culture that's been set up by these guys is that even if you're pro, no matter what level you come back and play, I think guys get off a plane from pro baseball, get back in September, and they're strapping it on for their club team the next week or whenever they're available. So no one really sat out. Nobody took time off. Everyone just got back in and played and found a way to compete and get better. I think that set the tone for the next 10, 15 years plus.
It is really cool. Like, and sorry, Hughesy, but that is really cool. Like, I look at it from a club ball perspective as well. Obviously, like for me, like the first week Morley played at the ballpark, right? I just wanted to go watch Waz pitch. Like, do you know what I mean? And I knew Waz had the ball, so I just went and watched. Like, it was sick. It was like, oh, that's an ex big league guy. Like, you know what I mean? So that whole thing is and probably bought too. I'll give you some flowers, Hughesy. I'm not all mean, but maybe you were a part of that. Like, there's a bunch of guys that were involved in that movement, and now it's sort of the norm. So I mean, that's amazing.
I look at those times back then, and it's clearly a special time in my life, in everybody that was a part of its life. And I know, Lachy, you were a part of, the first couple that we won in the Clacko era. And I really put a lot of the credit down to the development of the players, and that essentially comes back to Donnie Kyle and the influence that he had amongst the playing group. Throughout those years of development, he threw more BP than anybody else. He was always there to support us. And if you fast forward over the years, you've seen not publicly, but amongst our group, what he has meant to the players by getting invited to guys' weddings, right?
Yeah.
And, we're talking a coach that was a part of our lives 20 plus years ago. And, that's how much Donnie has meant to the development of the players and what they think of him. So, I know he's still, he likes to float around the Heat, and obviously his son is, coaching AK and stuff like that. But I guess, you were a part of it, mate. We were part of the waste days together down there, lifting and shifting weights with Donnie, hitting on the field every single day. He just kept him throwing. And when he stuffed up his right shoulder, he learned how to throw left-handed so he could throw BP to us.
Yeah. Tore his labrum on his right shoulder, had surgery, so he started learning how to throw BP with his left, right? It was nuts, his commitment to the playing group. Like, you can't question it, right? And it's even down the days, but this is training. Just any time that we needed to train and get a workout, would be at Challenge Stadium, which is now whatever, HBF Arena or HBF Park. Would be when it's raining in the winter, would be inside in the gym, in the actual basketball courts. He's hitting those yellow jugs balls, smashing those on the ground and inside in a little basketball court, just to make sure we get our work in and get used to the fast pace of a player, of an infielder, so we can get prepped to go away. Would go down on it could be a Monday through Friday down at West Stirling. Would find somewhere we've got a back net, and you'd just throw hours and hours of baseballs. Would do our hitting drills, hitting out games, hitting through cones and whatever else, trying to have quality competitive at bats. Then we'd all walk out and pick up probably four buckets worth of balls from the home run around the field, bring them all back, talk about hitting, talk about this, talk about that, and we'd do that. We'd go and lift, and you just do that 4 or 5 days a week, and you just find a way to get in it. And Donnie, without a question,
do you remember when we shifted out to the Wacker and we were hitting in the nets out at the Wacker, and we used to have Kevin Hooker, Jeff's brother. He used to come down and throw us batting practice. It wasn't batting practice. He legitimately was trying to get us out. Like, he was up there, throwing fuel batting practice, snapping curveballs, change-ups. We were having that
good stuff.
Like,
did he have good stuff?
Nasty. It was like nasty, mate.
Anybody
nasty
in
stuff.
WA, he was 90 in his prime.
Yeah, mate, so
96 miles an hour is fuel, and with stuff.
Mate, we're sitting in these cages, poor lights. You can hardly see, nets with kind of like holes in it, like L screens down there. It was like, we're in like this dodgy warehouse thing. Thank God they've knocked it down. And funny enough,
Finally.
when I was down there as a coach a couple of years ago, it was still like that, right? And I'm talking we were there 15 years ago, plus 20 years ago.
Yeah, 20
And,
years
Kev was up there just throwing fuel at us, and we're in there like choking up, trying to like battle off stuff. But for me, I look at back and look at the development, the coaching, and how everything goes. That was a huge part of us understanding how to compete and how to learn how to compete. And I know for us as players back then, it was huge.
And the cool thing then, we integrated. Like you get a couple of hits, and we'll do games, 4-on-4 type games, and they have live at bats. And I still like to do it with our guys in Morley. And I thought I took a lot out of that. It teaches game situations under pressure, when you get your anxiety and your performance levels come up because you want to make sure you get a hit and whatever else and compete and win. And then Kev was probably an uber competitive guy as well. He won a couple of President's medals over here, and he didn't get enough time in the ABL because of his pro career and sort of the end of the ABL when he was probably in his prime. But he was a phenomenal player, Hall of Famer. But he got his competitive juices going. You might get a hit one time, then he'll brush you back as hard as he can to brush you off the plate, and he'll come back with a snapper, and you're ducking out of the lane, and you're moving your feet around. I'm like, this is BP? What are you talking about? And then the cool thing is, at that time, we still get some of the old ABL guys came down. I remember Gavin Edmondson came down a couple of times and swinging the bats, getting in there, and it was a really good sort of environment. It's a highly competitive environment. We used to hit in groups. It might have been groups of 6 to 8 guys, and you just get mass reps. And that's one of the things we've sort of tried to recreate a little bit now and moving forward, but in some of our performance programs, but trying to get that competitive reps and competitiveness back involved. I remember we used to sneak onto the whacker field and play long toss as well until somebody kicked us off and security came walking around. But there's a different day there. There's a lot more flexible of what you could do. But again, that was the program that was led by Don Cole and the administration at the time. Was there wasn't a lot of money floating around, and we paid to play in those collection shields. I think we paid $500 or $1,000 to go away to represent our state in the Open Collection Shield. Take your time off, take your 2 weeks off work, and pay to play, and you'd go and compete for the title. And I think 2004, it must have been 2000 and the 2004 Collection Shield was probably the best because it was an Olympic year.
Two. Was it 3?
January 2004, because the Olympics for Athens was coming up in September that year. And you could always know when there's an Olympic year, everybody had to play to roll out to strut their stuff. And that was Nielsen was playing in that Collection Shield tournament, and you had all the big leagues that I think you and Dave spoke about last time. Pretty much everybody that went to the Athens Olympics all played in the Collection Shield. So it didn't get any better than that. That was as competitive from the experience and the professionalism and those guys that came through the late era of the ABL. They were all still good. They knew what they're doing. They just the salty vets that could just get it done. And then we're all young upstarts. And I don't know, Luke, if you want to roll into the confrontation you had at second base with David, but that might be a bit heated when I can start.
Look at the blue. Look at blue.
Let's go.
Get excited. No,
I love all baseball stories. Give it to me. I'm ready.
It is a well-told tale, and I can't go into the colourful language, but in a nutshell, we're playing Queensland. David Nielsen's on first. I think I was playing first base at the time. Pretty sure Dean White was at shortstop. Luke was playing second. As you can imagine, he was quite sprightly and chirpy as a probably a 19-year-old at the 20-year-old at the time.
Hughesy?
Yeah, it's hard to believe, I know.
Hughesy, chirping? No way.
Yeah, it's crazy.
No.
So I don't know what the score was. All I remember is David come barreling down towards second base to break up a double play when you could do, and just steamrolled through Dean White, old school, 90s type, barrel the guy, take his legs out. And Dean sort of got clipped. He's pretty athletic at the time, so he sort of got out of the way enough. Luke didn't care that Dave Nielsen is all-star in the big leagues, 15 years of elite sport. Gets up in his face and said a few choice words, almost started the fight with the big fella. And we've all run in there, joined at second base, and we're like, I think we might be over our skis here. And this is Queensland when they had Gonzalez was in there, and I think Ronenberg, and they had some big boys. I'm like, I think we might be outmatched here. So
Stockton.
Stockton.
What about Stockman? He's 6'10". PJ Bevis,
It was a
So
time when
just a little part.
exactly. Luke almost got us into a fight that we couldn't actually back it up on, and but
to my defense, okay, and this story has been told a little bit over the years. I kindly said to David, David, do you think you slid a little bit too far outside the base path? And he politely said to me, no, son, I did not. And then when I turned to look at the umpire went, you're out, David, and you're out at first base, out of the line. And I went to David, I said, okay, have a nice day, David, and then jogged off the field.
yeah,
The funniest part about this whole thing,
I love it.
so we had this whole interaction, I like to call it,
Yeah.
and
Positive or negative?
yeah, positive or negative. And fast forward to the end of the tournament, I was fortunate enough to be selected to play against South Africa in the Olympic qualifiers there after the tournament finished. And funny enough, Dave and I crossed paths. So Dave, knowing Dave, came straight up to me and I was like, hey, Luke, how are you? And I was like, hey, David, nice to meet you. And clearly me being I think at 19 at the time, was, obviously, a little bit, I don't know, I took a step backwards clearly, but I think in the long run, I think Dave respected the fact that I stood up for his team, my teammate, and yeah, no, it was funny. I got to play with Dave a couple of times, and funny enough, that tournament against South Africa, I actually pinch run for Dave at first base, so that was my first little taste of the national team.
Did you give him the same greeting?
I went for the high five as we run off the field, and he just fresh aired me. He's like, no, son.
That's what you get. That's what you get.
Do you guys want to get Deeble back on to confirm that David went into his office and said this kid's never playing in the Athens Olympics? So David's responsible for costing you of a silver medal. Can we go with that one? Can we go with that?
Don't start those rumors. Don't start those rumors. I already hate Deebs enough for that one, But no, it was the opportunity. Funny enough, you bring up like that 2004 shit. You look at it, as you said, that everybody came out for that. Everybody was there, and if you look back at it in a little bit of a deeper, I guess, outlook, it was something that probably doesn't get spoken about enough. Really, like. Clearly, 2004 Olympics, silver medal, unbelievable. But that Claxon Shield was pretty cool to be a part of. And mate, it's good memories.
Oh. So let's move into some current day stuff. I mean, I know the missus has got to go to netball soon, so I don't want to hold you up for too much longer, Lachy. You probably want to get back on your Peloton, and I totally understand that, mate. I totally get it. Also, if the audience listening probably aren't aware, the guys in WA will be. Lochy's a huge Morley Eagles guy, so a couple of Morley Eagles guys on the pod, so it's good to see. Thanks, mate. B grade player of the year, like 6 or 7 years running. Is that right? Is that right, Lachy? Am I pumping up a bit too much here, or not?
I can't win the
not
MVP,
enough,
mate.
Not enough.
Luke Holbert.
How did the boys go on the weekend?
Yeah, we won. We played Kelmscott, and we ended up winning 14-2. So it's a solid win, solid hit out. But the boys are good.
4-2?
14-2, mate. 14-2.
14. Oh, I was going to say 4-2 is a good game, but 14-2. Yeah, right. No, fair enough. That's good. Hey, let's move into some current day stuff. I just wanted to get that in there for you, mate. You B grade guys.
No, let's talk about the B grade a little bit. Let's
go.
Let's
go
to that. So Lochy, many years ago, I've been begging him. I was like, mate, come to Morley and play. Come to Morley. His brother Brandon as well. It's more so I just wanted Brandon, and I knew they were package deals. So it's more so I spent more time on Brandon trying to get him because he was clearly the better player back then. And Lochy was just that little side piece that you get in there and pops a couple out here and there, and then thankfully after all the years of begging, all the beers we drank in mum and dad's shed, the fires that we built, all the times I kept on asking him, mate, come play for Morley's at Swans. Went to West Stirling, mate, come to Morley. The boys always all over him. Then finally he came to Morley, and wasn't it that the best decision of your life?
Yeah, it was. I won't shy away from that.
You can't.
I can't go back on that. I've been on records of saying that before. No, it was. I mean, I played at West Stirling, and thankful for the times out there, and also Swans, and both probably critical in my career in different ways. And then I guess probably once I finished playing overseas and probably settled down on where do I want to play baseball and enjoy mateship and whatever else was. I did used to, sorry for the West Stirling people that might listen to this, but I used to drive home from games out at West Stirling and pop in and have a cheeky one or two with the Morley boys on the way home back up to Kalamunda because I was still living up there. And it was probably more for guys like Shay Jenkins and Adam Holt and David Hanna that I enjoyed their company. And sitting there going, if I keep hanging
Not
out
Mark.
with you guys,
Not Mark.
he wasn't there at the time. He was no good.
Not Mark Hanna.
I don't think so.
Yeah,
No, Mark went on to play county cricket, and then after he played county cricket, he came back and played for Morley. But no, it was a good bunch of blokes down at Morley, and I sort of sat there and go, well, if I'm going to continue, I might as well play somewhere that I've got good friends with. And my brother did say, "Where are you?" My brother Brandon said, "Where are you going to play? Because I'll go wherever you go." And then it was Morley, and that was sort of where we've been since 2005. So yeah, pushing 19 odd years. And yeah, I guess it's probably from there. It's yeah.
No, I was just going to say. So you're the Bloop, and your brother Brandon's the Blast. Is that
pretty much? Yeah,
I'm with you. I'm the Bloop.
Yeah.
We're Bloop guys, Lachy. We're Bloop guys. Yeah. So
do you know? I need to go back and look at the trophy and see who actually has won more home run titles at Morley, whether or not it was Brandon or Lachlan. No. I actually don't know this answer. Do you know the answer to this?
Hang on. I probably do know. I'll go take a photo when I'm down there next, but I'm pretty sure you and maybe Brandon and maybe Hughesy shared it with 2 one year that I didn't play. So you had 2 home runs for the year and you shared the home run trophy. So big kudos to you guys, but it's a far cry when I was banging out 10 or 11 each year, but that's okay.
No, like, look, all jokes aside, Lockie has had a huge part of Morley and the, I guess, continued success. And you won a championship there with Morley, mate, something that I wasn't able to do during my time and as a coach at Morley. And that's something that I think at that time, and we'll get into the Heat stuff very shortly, but it was nearly that transition kind of year. And you had Tony as your coach, assistant coach for a couple of years, and then Mike Burgermeister for a year. And, you won a championship at Morley. That must have been pretty cool.
Yeah, it was. And I think since I got there in 2005, and the guys had sort of the older guys of the Morley team had sort of limited success. They sort of played in some finals, but didn't really. That was probably a heyday of the Wannaroos and South Perths going head to head for probably every year for about 6 years, and Morley didn't really get a sniff in. And then probably 2005, we were still young enough and fit enough, and I think that's probably where it changed around from the group. Probably similar. There's a lot of synergies to the Perth Heat, a bunch of younger guys that were in 24 to 25-year-olds that just got along well. We liked training. We liked getting the extra swings in from 2005 onwards. I think Hughesy was actually the coach of Morley as well for 1 year. We had guys like Ron Malcolm for a year. And then I took over, I think 2008, 2009 season was my first year. And I don't know, it can be called a lot of things, but sometimes silly's not one of them when it comes to get the best guy, the Hall of Famer, Australian legend Tony Adamson to be your assistant coach. So as a playing coach, it's probably good to have a good right-hand man. So I go get Addo as the assistant coach to keep me on track. And he was, I guess I can't speak highly enough of what Tony helped from my probably coaching and a little bit of that leadership side of things, decision-making process from that. Tony was great as a right-hand man to provide me the support and just put in some systems in place, which I think we changed a lot around at Morley about number of reps, our pre-season workouts, the way we construct our liner and lifting the standards and expectations of the playing group. I thought was really critical to that success and the future success. And Tony, and obviously Corey was coming through. Tony's son was coming through at that time into the juniors, so it worked well. And then Tony took a step back, and then when I got another Hall of Famer caliber guy, as Mike Burgermeister, as the next assistant coach after Tony, and it was very organised, very planned, very driven, and so it's probably a good little, very opposite to what I was at the time. I just did the talking and sort of lead sort of what we're doing on the field. But Bergie was amazing from running the training drills, keeping everything structured. Bergie loved his PFPs and his bunt defenses and his first and thirds, which not necessarily everyone loves. So I had to shut him down at certain times. But he was fantastic as a right hand man. understood the game, and would sort of handle the playing group and the tough discussions with dropping players and whatever else. And Bergie would make sure we execute the training and allowed me to still play at the same time. And then we won it in 2010. And then, fortunately or unfortunately, depends on which way you look at it, the role with Baseball WA came up in June 2010, and the board of Baseball WA at the time said, well, if you want the job at Baseball WA, you're going to have to step down as Morley coach, of a conflict of interest, etc. So I stepped down as coach of Morley, and then took on the Baseball WA role. And I mean, I look back now and the argument could be made that Shane Tonkin, the previous GM at the time, was also coaching Swans when they won 2 championships in 2007 and 2008, but that wasn't a conflict, but that's okay. We won't go there. But I think for my career, where I was, it was...
When did the B grade dynasty start? That's what I'm curious about, because for those listeners that aren't involved in this, and I'll just give a bit of...
Dynasty or Dynasty?
Dynasty. This is Derby again. For those listeners that aren't in WA, the West Coast Derby is quite a fun thing to say to people, because everyone goes, nah, mate, it's a derby. It's when Freo and West Coast play. Triggers people left, right and centre.
How's his WA accent?
Derby. That's anyways, don't get me started. No. But the dynasty or dynasty, I don't know. Let us know in the comments which one's right. There you go, a little bit of link in. Hey, but honestly, this team is so hard to join. I've asked, and the one thing I get asked all the time when I go, hey boys, can I start playing for this B grade side? Right, absolutely stacked. The one question I get back is, have you got any kids?
Correct.
And I said, look, I can adopt a child, like that's fine. But like, is that really the only requirement for me to have kids? Like, is that it?
There's far greater requirement than that. No, I think I finished playing state league maybe.
Or be able to throw 7 innings.
Yeah, exactly. That's the other one. Can you pitch?
If you can throw 7 innings, yeah.
Can you pitch and do you have kids? And if they're pretty two good requisites. But no, I think I finished playing state league 2017-ish, something like that. Played a couple of years of reserves, and I was sort of done by then.
Don't forget, won a couple.
Yeah, I know. But
won a couple of championships.
I was probably more done from playing properly and training, and obviously work was busy, doing the ability to still perform. And I think the change of had a kid and the desire to keep training and playing at a standard, that sort of waned on me. And I was like, I've sort of played enough baseball. So I sort of moved from our core group. I moved down to the reserves a bit earlier than Mark and Dave Hanna. They hung on for another year or two, and then they finally caved in probably 2019, 2020, something like that. And then that's when we sort of went to the reserves. But the theory was we have an older group in that state league crew. So we sort of drop down, and then every couple of years you get 2 or 3 of the younger guys to come up in the state league, rather than, making sure it's cold turkey and crossing over. So we sort of rotated, got those young guys up. We still hung around, and we probably had the fortunate process of we were the old guys playing reserves, which we could sort of lead and help support some of those younger guys coming through into that reserve. So teach them the way of the game, so to speak, or how we've learnt to play the game. So when they did get up into state league, that they were a bit better equipped. And then we did that for a couple of years, won a couple of premierships, and then we sort of had enough of that and got a bit older and sore and slower. And then we moved into that B grade space. I think it was maybe state league 3s, whatever it was, but it was more that 9 o'clock slot. Whatever competition plays at 9 a.m. on a Sunday, we'll take that. The kids are up. The kids are up and out. We'll go play. And I think the mix up of now is old ex state league guys that know how to play the game. Got a couple of kids, can't train on Thursday nights, and we've sort of all got work or life or other priorities are probably taken precedent. And then, but we all sort of know how to play the game. We all still love it. But I think that for us, and it's interesting for what it started with into that 3s or grade or reserves grade. Shay Jenkins has come back. Leonard Ostaszowski's come back. They haven't played the game for 14 years. So they played state league maybe 2008, 2009 type era, and then had families, had work commitments. They've come back and joined the team. And a guy, old bloke, former Perth Heat, one gamer, Shane Smith, he obviously hadn't been around. He's another 7 or 8 years above us, or older than us, but he's come back into the fold and wants to be around the group, and Luke Holbert. So we've got anywhere between 40-year-olds to 50-year-olds that all used to play, all have other priorities, and it's a chance to catch up on a Thursday afternoon or Thursday night at the club for an hour or two, or catch up on a Sunday for 2 hours and it's more around the mateship and talking a little smack and playing a little ball.
So one question, and we probably need to wrap this up and talk about some Heat. Is it true that you recruited Adam Milson and Corey Adamson to play B grade baseball with you this year?
Millie is absolutely raking. It's wild.
Did you recruit Adam Milson and Corey Adamson to
You're trying
play
to get
B
him
grade?
on record. I like this. Yeah. So please answer the question.
It wasn't necessarily, mate. I was involved in a multiple person conversation in a Facebook chat with Adam Milson and even Corey, as far as B grade recruiting may have been the title of the group chat. And the prerequisite were Dan Calverley's coaching state league, so we need a catcher. And so that's how we got Millie, because he didn't want to pitch anymore. And again, he doesn't train, doesn't throw a ball. He just shows up and he's enormous. He's strong as an ox and he swings about at about 115, 120 miles an hour. It's crazy. With metal bats.
The helicopter.
Exactly. And Corey Adamson hasn't played for, I think I looked at it, it's about 10 years. Corey Adamson hasn't played since he finished baseball and went off into the AFL world. And obviously he's got his property and his real estate business that's flying, and he spent a number of years setting that up. And with Corey, I think, and we haven't talked a lot about it really because he's only been down 3 times to the club, and that's 3 games. One of the cool things he thought that his kid's playing T-ball now down at Morley Eagles, and he also, his kid's never seen him play baseball. So the joy for him is that his son gets son and daughter and to come and watch him play baseball that they've never done before. So that's sort of an insight into why our B grade team it works, and we could lose games for all I care. It's actually, getting down and having the kids running around there at a home game, and everyone sort of gets along, and you don't train, we rock, show and go, and it's
mate, this is the coolest thing, right? Like, you see, there's 15 kids running around the B grade game at Morley, and they win a championship, right? And they take this photo, and there's 15 kids in a photo, right? So everyone's got a couple, some have one, whatever like that, and then all the boys line up, and there's all these kids there. And to me, that's what Morley Eagles Baseball Club is all about, and that's what B grade is all about. Come down, still get to play the game, hang out with the boys, have fun. Kids get to run around, get to watch Dad play baseball, and Dad still gets to do his thing, which I think is huge for us as men, to be able to find just a little bit of time to hang out with our friends and our mates and the guys out who are our best friends, and all the guys that you mentioned, tonight are all best friends. It's legitimately a group of best mates getting to play together, so it's pretty special.
Well,
it is cool though. I umpired a game last year. Oh, sorry, you go. There's a bit of a delay. Sorry there, Lachy. You go, mate.
And I think that's the cool part. A lot of those guys, like Brad Allpike and those guys, they've got their kids coming through in the junior space. So their kids are a bit older than our kids. So you've got the teenagers, even Dave Hanna and Ostaszowski, their kids are now coming through as juniors of Morley. And so they're back involved. They've done their work family thing. Now the kids are back involved. And you got the older ones playing catch, and you got the young ones running around going on swing sets and whatever else. So I think it's pretty unique, and we'll do that until we can't do it no more. And a couple of the older guys might drop off, and then we might bring in Mitch Graham. He's got a kid, so Mitch Graham might play, and Zach McMillan's got a kid, so Zach might come and play, and see who else. Maybe Bono will have one in a couple of years. Bono can come and play. So I think that's probably more how do we stay involved, engaged in the club, and find a way to give back in other ways, and whether it be at a training for some of these young guys or on a weekend around the traps. I think it's pretty critical. And probably in my mind, it sort of summarises why I got into the administration side of it, is to create that really positive environment at a club, and it's a place to go where it's a second family that you can go to. And how do you build that across the board? How do you get 25 clubs in WA to be that same good little outlet to get away from the rat race of life, and you go to your baseball club and you hang out, you talk, you share stories, and you just enjoy yourself for a couple of hours a week, whatever it is.
So all right, so into the heavy stuff. Baseball CEO, before we jump into the Perth Heat, you've been in, part of the, you said 2010, you went in the GM role with the Heat before transitioning over into Baseball WA 2013-ish, around that.
About that, yep.
Roughly, about that.
Yep.
And, mate, I guess last 11, 12 years. Like how have you seen it develop, mate? Like what have you, I guess, some of the big things, and I know all of them, so I can sit here and rattle them all off, but what are some of the big key moments and things that have happened over the years that, you put your hat to and that you're proud of?
Yeah, I think there's a few, right? And I've been lucky enough to have a couple of good business mentors that I rely on, and some public, some sort of private, and whatever else. And I think from that is around trying to leave a legacy, and like everyone, you want to leave it better than you found it. And I think 2010, as we said, Jeff was a volunteer, GM, CEO, essentially managing director, doing a lot of volunteer hours. We probably had, I'll probably say 7 or 8 honorariums that worked sort of 10 to 20 hours running competitions, scoring, database, tribunals, facility, whatever you might call it. There were very few. I think there might have only been 1 or 2 full-time paid staff at the time. And probably seeing that changing from a very amateur, I guess, we'll help when we can help, and we can't necessarily deliver all the outcomes for the clubs because we didn't have the resources at the time. And I think seeing that grow over the last 15 years where we do have 6 or 7 full-time staff, but then I think in the same breath we can provide that level of resource where you can call Baseball WA, people will answer the phone at pretty much 6-7 days a week and can get back to you with a response and help you out in some capacity. So I think that's probably building that workforce up to be able to better provide support and resource to our clubs. I think that's really critical, and probably turning it in for and Jeff won't mind me saying it, bit of a fly by the seat of your pants type administration. We'll just figure a way to put the teams on the field and run a competition. So I think we've got some more robust processes and procedures, which I think is hopefully set us up for the next evolution of the sport. I think the facility development's been pretty impressive from the ballpark, built in 2004, probably had 500 seats behind home plate and then grassed banks and whatever else. And sort of when I came in, it was probably about 1,000 seat capacity with some concrete blocks and some seats that's sort of on the sides above the dugouts. Since then, working with government, both state and federal, and some commercial partners to be able to get, I think we've had about $11 million invested into the ballpark in the last probably 7 or 8 years since 2015. It's probably started the process. So again, a big shout out to both the Sport and Rec Department, local government and cultural industries, but also Ken White's office. Ken White came to a game and some of those, obviously Liberal Party members, quite high up in the national side of things. We invited him out to a game and started lobbying and entertaining, and he said, so where do you see this being in 10 years' time? So we laid out the vision, and he loved it. He fell in love with the sport. Him and his wife come out on a regular basis to the Perth Heat games, and he said, how much do you need? Originally, I said, we need 5 million. He said, Lachy, you're shooting too low. I think you need 20. I'm like, all right, let's go with 20, Ken. So he went knocking on the door with Malcolm Turnbull in 2015 for a federal election and asked for 20, and we got 6. And since then, we expanded the facilities from extra grandstand seating, increased ablutions on the sidelines. We replaced all the seating, and we enclosed the bar. We added extra change room sizes because they were small little boxes that we had before. We built a gym at the ballpark in the Undercroft. We changed some dugouts and expanded the dugouts so we can host international events with the Asian market, both Korea and Japan and Taiwan. We built the shed in centre field. So there's a whole bunch of things that we increased. Now it seats 4,000 people capacity. We've got HD lighting upgrades as well, so we can have international quality games. And we've probably got what now resembles a minor league facility. It's still I think it's the best in the country. We've had great people that worked on the field. Probably more recently, Rod Drew, I think it was 16 years working on the facility up until last year, and moved on. But the work that went on from volunteers plus Rod facilitating, that everyone chipped in a little bit over the last 10 plus years to get the ballpark looking great. And now we're moving into how do we start to commercialize and monetize the facility from functions and events, and what's the next cap off the rank? Do we go get sports turf on the facility and again switch the lights to LED so we can host multiple functions, concerts, events, other sports potentially, but also changing that greenhouse side of things and reducing our footprint. We've got solar panels up at the moment, but we're still you switch the lights on and solar panels don't do too much for the lights. They just draw too much. So how do we get LEDs installed at the ballpark so we can be the first green-friendly stadium in the country? Nobody else has done it. Nobody else is looking at it, I don't think, and we're not that far away from achieving it.
I think it's very important to get the LEDs just because then we can have like the sick entrances for the relievers. I think that's also for the green hat. Yeah, but we can do that. Yeah, and play some music. Another big thing I
Timmy
think you
Trumpet.
need little Timmy trumpet. Yeah. Maybe even a little big sexy on the broadcast before the game. Introducing it. Yeah,
You can be the
there's a
hype guy.
chance. But anyways,
Hype guy.
just a couple ideas. I'm a good hype guy. I mean, look at Hughesy. He's jacked. Look at him. He's ready to go. I'm just this hype guy. That's all I'm here for, So it is what it is.
No, like so you mentioned, mate, like, and I know all the great stuff that you've done, and the facility has definitely come a long way since we first, I guess, started, and the upgrades have been phenomenal. I guess that now, the Perth Heat boys are the guys that get to reap the rewards. State League plays out there. I know you have a lot of different, tournaments and, school tournaments and all that stuff at the facility. Brad Prizoff obviously is doing a great job of maintaining the grass at the moment. It looks tip top. He sends me a photo basically every Thursday or Friday of it all striped up still to this day. I was a turfie with him for a while, so I do appreciate it, seeing it looking so good. We move on to, I guess, the Perth Heat, and we've been having a lot of fun tonight, and I've enjoyed the chin wag. But it's time to, I guess, get to the serious part of discussing the Perth Heat, and I guess, where are they at this year, mate? I know there has been some, signings and some announcements, but a little bit late to the party. It feels like it seems like a little bit behind compared to some of these other teams. Like, where are we at with everything?
Yeah, mate, no, we're ready to rock and roll from the baseball side of things, and probably some clarity around who does what, and in the world of Perth Heat and baseball WA, because I think it's probably a bit unknown. Everyone just sees baseball and goes, it's just baseball is baseball in WA, and as baseball WA, we're really conscious of that. We're arguably the governors of the sport or the caretakers of the sport, make sure it is moving in the right direction and heading, I guess, forward for the sport. So whether that includes Perth Heat or grassroots baseball, male, female, the whole lot. So we sort of oversee that, but Perth Heat do contract baseball WA through the extension of our high performance program. We thought that was critical with the ownership coming in, that they could run the business side of things, ticket sales, sponsorships, concessions and game day of a Perth Heat. But then baseball WA has the expertise in the baseball side of things. So we run and manage the baseball operations. So that's rosters, coaching staff, and make sure there's some continuity between you come through your state team 16s and 18s and the highest performance programs, and then you filter into the next core Australians into the Perth Heat. So we still manage that process, and so it's really critical for young guys like Jai Hewitt and Ben Nesbitt and Jackson Limpers to be in that development sort of space on the Perth Heat roster again this year. Some of the announcements haven't come through, but all the work's pretty much finished, to be honest, in the background. We'll continue our relationship with the Tampa Bay Rays. I think this is going on 7 years now with the Tampa Bay Rays. And again, synergies. How do you create performance and culture without spending fortunes in a budget, right? And that probably sums up the Tampa Bay Rays. How do you do things smarter and more effectively and efficiently? And I think that's probably where we have to be as a sport, not just as the Perth Heat, but good characters, good people with that care about one another each in the clubhouse. I think probably similar to the Tampa Bay Rays. So we'll get 4 players from the Tampa Bay Rays and a coach. So one catcher, Delgado, and then I think we've got Colmenares in the infield, and then we've got Mateo and Diaz coming out as outfielders. We've also continued the relationship with the Cincinnati Reds. So the Cincinnati Reds came out last year for the first time. They'll send another player out mid-year, infielder as well, probably mid-year, but to start the season, probably expanding on that relationship that we had with the Rakatan Golden Eagles of the NPB, with Takahisha coming out last year. And he's probably got 3 more years in the NPB before he can get posted, but keep an eye on this guy. I think he was a 9-2 with a 2.1 ERA in the NPB last year as a 24-year-old. He'll be the next guy that goes to the big leagues and gets a couple of million posted behind him. and then just having that conversation and couple. But again, part of that, Will Sheriff was fortunate enough. He reached out and he's worked with the Golden Eagles. So Will Sheriff went and spent 6 weeks with the Golden Eagles in their training camp through September and October, I think the dates were. And he's built a relationship with those guys to try and develop himself as a player. And continuing on with that, we're going to get a third base, second baseman from the Golden Eagles who plays in the big leagues over there. So he'll come out for the first 5 weeks. And then probably new to the partnership is the NC Dinos from the KBO, the Korean Baseball Organization. So there'll be 4 pitchers, 2 starters, 2 relievers from the KBO, another pitcher. So they're probably exciting to see what they're also sending a coach, translator, and their strength and conditioning guy out as well. And then we've got Dario Frigio. He's coming out. Again, another connection that one of our former players, Alex Boschiers, is a pitching coach for the Washington Wild Things in the Frontier League. So as a supporter of the Perth Heat, he's happy to give us some inside tips. So Dario will come out here as one of our starting guys, and then probably more recently, also I don't know if we're going to do an announcement, but anyway, Tyler Beardsley is also joining the team again, which is fantastic. So been out with us for a couple of years, but Tyler's back. He wants to win this championship and wants to come in. Again, it's probably just a continuation of what we talked about earlier on this podcast. Just the culture that is ingrained in the clubhouse. Once you come and play for the Perth Heat, you're a Heater for life, and you just don't want to leave. You want to come back. So I think Tyler coming back is just a bit of an example of, just wants to be a part of it and loves the boys, loves the environment that it creates, and can go out there and compete. So that's probably the bulk of the roster. And then, of course, we've got our 6 guys that are away with the Aussie national team. We've got the young guys in Will Sheriff and Joe Ranford, Jordan Power, Jesse Williams and Byron Armstrong rolling around in the infield. So it's just a really, really cool mix that we've got. And as I said, it's got a WA environment, and you've got some top-ups, and you can see easily with the roster. I was talking to Andy Cole the other day, and we're sort of scratching our heads a little bit about how the communication and the pre-game speeches are going to go, because you've got to speak Spanish, Japanese, Korean, American, and Australian to make sure everyone's on the same page. So that's going to be interesting and a bit different dynamic.
It's going to be a fun clubhouse, man.
Mate,
oh, my God.
And AK is straight Occo's Aussie as well. So, he's going to be throwing slang out there. But, mate, looking at that, like that roster, and I know the NC Dinos and the Rakatan Eagles, that's a huge step forward in the development of Australian baseball. Spoke to Gonzo last week, and he mentioned the numbers and how many different organisations are coming out and being a part of the ABL. You look at that, you've got 4 different organisations from around the globe coming out to be a part of the Perth Heat. You mentioned it's very multicultural. It's going to be a special time, I think, to be in the clubhouse. Difficult time to be in the clubhouse, to be able to talk and mingle and integrate, what we believe and how we like to go about playing the game, and the support that we like to share for one another. That's probably, I feel, the biggest issue, if I looked at it, would be that, like, how do you integrate and become a team when you're looking at, essentially guys from across the globe? How do you reckon the team, and I know you're led by TK and Wazza and Hawley and all these boys that do a really good job of it, but what do you think? Like, how are you going to bring everyone together?
Send me in there, Lachy. I'll bring Google Translate and just send me in there. Don't worry about it. Nah.
Well, we can definitely bring that Big Sexy, but I think that's the unique dynamic of what you get with the ABL, right? It's a cross between a performance league, a development league, and also a community state association type mold, so we can take the advantages out. You've got a unique opportunity to learn. So a lot of those younger guys that I mentioned that are going to be in that development space coming out of the HP program, the fact that they've come from a little pond in Perth playing baseball, most isolated city in the world, and all of a sudden you realise you've got, major leaguers playing in Japan and Korea, and top end professional guys from the US, plus your own local Australian team heroes, all in the one clubhouse. It's just such a learning experience to go, you know what? There's so much more to this sport than just playing at my local club. So you sort of highlight and go, well, this is where you can take your game as well. And I think that's probably the beauty of what baseball has over a lot of other sports, probably similar to basketball, to be honest, is baseball can be a vehicle to take you all around the world, play in multiple countries, multiple continents around the world, and get paid to play, experience it. It's free travel for you, not so much your parents all the time as a junior, but it's a chance to see the world by playing the game of baseball. And I think from that, it's a unique experience. I think the first couple of weeks, it is an absolute, it's mind numbing for the coaching staff to figure out how do we get everyone on the same page, and what we have in the culture of the clubhouse in the Perth. It probably takes 2 weeks, to be honest, to get that to get everybody to buy into what the Perth Heat stands for in professional baseball and professional leagues around the world. And it doesn't really probably matter whether it's baseball or another sport. You play professionally for yourself, for your contract, and it's nice to win because you probably get bonuses. But with the Perth Heat, you actually play to win the game. So you play for your teammates, you play to win as a team, and the team success actually takes priority of trying to, forward propel yourself. Junior Caminero is a great little story, and as we know, he's not bad as a talent-wise, but he came over first week. I think he had an 0 for game. He was scuffling, maybe hitting 150, 200, something like that. And he just got frustrated. I think he punched out 3 or 4 times in a game, walked in the clubhouse and just went to town on some of the brick walls and chopped it up with his bat, essentially. And so we had to have that conversation with arguably one of Tampa's best prospects. We had the conversation with him. He came back in first scene, got in there an hour and a half before everyone else when the coaching staff only were there. We'd spoken to him earlier in the morning. He came into the coaching staff and apologized to the coaching staff and said, sorry, I didn't, it's not what I just really want to win. I really want to do better and not let my team down. And so there's a bit of a change in mindset for juniors straight away. It's like, it's not about your individual success. It's about how do you provide an environment for success so you can learn, so you can grow, so you can fail in the ABL, and then use those 10 weeks, 12 weeks to figure out how to make the adjustments from arguably a more experienced pitching staff on the other side of it who have got AA, AAA, big league experience. How do you make the adjustments as a super talented 20-year-old that's got all these tags about going to be a future prospect? Make the adjustments. By the end of the season, he's raking. He's putting up monster numbers. He's made the adjustments. And then next thing you know, he's in the big league 6 months later, whatever it is. And you start looking at it from the outside and you go, how important, how critical was that moment when he struggled, went 0 for 4, went to town on the walls in the clubhouse. Then we address it, we facilitate the learning environment, apologizes to the coaching staff, addresses the team when they all arrive in Spanish, and then try to speak in English as well as a learning piece. And then all of a sudden you go, how much has that had in setting him up for learning moving forward? And hopefully we think it's a lot. We think we can go through a bunch of stories like that, and that's where the Perth Heat can provide really cool, unique inside the clubhouse experiences that people don't get to see. And I think that's where that performance environment and that culture, there's a bit of those, no idiot policy. That gets stamped out pretty quickly by the leaders of the coaching staff and also the playing group. And how do you ensure, the biggest challenge, to be honest, is how do you ensure that continues once Wazza and TK, as mid to late 30-year-olds, sort of finally do hang up the boots, and then it's going to be left to the guys coming through. Who? TK's 39.
Mate, he's in better shape than he was when he was 20.
He's investing
TK still hasn't answered my question about his skincare, by the way. I've been messaging him every day. He still hasn't written back, so I don't know what's going on there.
If we look at the roster, mate, and you mentioned the boys just then, Wazza and TK, we talked to TK earlier in the earlier podcast, and I've had private conversations with him around what the future holds for him and what it looks like moving forward. And he's pretty open with where he's at with it all. I think as long as it works with the family is probably number one. Number two is performance, and he is a very highly competitive person. If anyone knows TK, highly competitive. And I think for him, the moment he doesn't feel it, and to be honest with you, at the start of last year, I think he went through a period in his career which it's never happened like that for him. He struggled the first few weeks of the season. He found it, And I said to him, the whole season shifted last year when he found it. He found it. He went 10 for 10, and then the Perth Heat took off, right? And you made it all the way through to the championship series, winning game one. Difficult loss again. I know there's been a lot of success in the history of the Perth Heat. There hasn't been a lot of history created in the last few years. Pretty tough losing the last couple of championships. What are the Heat going to do this year to kind of get over that edge?
Yeah, I think that also creates the desire and the hunger too, as well. Like Hawley and Bajarski and Bowie and the guys that are coming through haven't got a championship under their belt. They really want one. They want to find a way. And again, you can not have the best team, and you can push it all the way, and you can have the best team and it not work out. And we've seen that over the last 7 or 8 years. I mean, last year it was an indifferent year. We had a lot of challenges on and off the field, with some injuries to some key guys and some guys a bit out of form. And if you were to tell me at the start of last year that we'd be playing in the championship series, I probably wouldn't have believed you. It's like, if we could just make the playoffs, I think that's probably about where we're at, top four. I don't think we're not the worst team, but I don't think we're the most stacked lineup and roster, and probably trying to do things a bit differently. And then I think this year we sort of sit there going, again, we've got the core nucleus of the guys to get there. I think you need a lot of luck. It's only a 10-week season. You start slow, you're behind the 8 ball. You can get hot for 4 or 5 weeks, and your season can change. And I look back to the years that they did win championships, and there's one where I think we ended up having to go on a 13-0 run, something like that, and post Christmas, when Brooke Knight was the manager and things were all over the place, and I think they almost won out on the way back and sat on top of the table and won it. So things can change, and I think it's probably that's the storming part of a performance team. Once everyone gets together, between the Rays, the Koreans from NC, and the Aussie guys, and then the local guys, it really is a crazy mix. And go, how quickly can you get everybody to gel together? And that's the challenge for Andy and the coaching staff, is how quickly can you get these guys to mold together. And then you've got your leaders, your six Australian players aren't here when everyone's in town, so you probably set back another week again.
Well,
So
my 4 guys, I've got 4 guys, and I know what I get from everybody else, right? So my 4 guys this year, there's 2 hitters and there's 2 pitchers that I feel that if they have the years that I think they'll have, will be able to tip you guys over the edge to win a championship. The 2 hitters for me, and I know one's won a Helmers Award already, Alex Hall is a huge piece to the puzzle within the Heat. He's one. He needs to, and good mate, of mine, and I've been able to watch him develop in many different aspects of his career and life and stuff. So, Alex Hall, I think, holds the key to the offense for that team. Number 2 is what is Bojo going to do this year? Where is he going to be at? Like what type of year is Bojo going to have? To be able to slot him, 5, 6, 7, I guess somewhere around there. He's another guy that really, I think the key to the success of the middle part of the order is going to be based around what Bojo does. And the 2 pitchers that I feel that are the 2 guys that, need to grab a hold of the staff and run with it. One's Kizza Hall. Okay, he's one guy that I look at and I'm like, all right, mate, you've been to college, you've come back, you've had a little taste of the ABL, have a little taste of the national team. It's time for you to kind of really lock down that Australian pitcher piece, whatever it is, starter, reliever. And number 2 would be Will Sheriff. Will Sheriff for me, I know he's been floated around, he's been around for years, but a lockdown arm guy out of the bullpen, lefty, to be able to extend, can throw multiple innings. That's a guy as well that those 4, the 2 offensive guys and 2 pitchers that I really need. I think the Heat need those guys to progress and become, the leaders of that organization. Because when you're going to get with TK, like he's going to go out, he's going to hit 300, he's going to do his thing, he's going to play great defense, right? Bowie's had a great last couple of years. He's really, locked down that first base position, and you've got a little platoon action, obviously, with Jesse and Byron going on, but with that pitching staff, was it coming a bit older and all that? Those are the guys that I feel that need to really take that next step forward.
yeah, I think there's a bunch of guys, and I think it's a crossover from where you get to. You can be young and talented but have no idea about what baseball is, and then you've got to try and hold on on a body and a performance side of things, where the mind catches back up at the same time. And I think the maturity of, as you said, of both halls, Sheriff and Bojo start to click into as well. So I think, a little bit more relaxed on Bojo. He's out of Pro Bowl. He's healthy this year. Might be a bit more relaxed and comfortable, not having to prove a point for anything, and can just go out and play freely. Same thing with Will. I think he's sort of, as you said, he's coming into his own. I think same thing with Kieran. I think this is a good opportunity to be able to come out and play. And you look back at all the championships. I mean, I don't know. You could pick any baseball team around the world, and you look at the quality of catcher that they've got. I think that's integral. I don't think you can win a championship with an average catcher. He handles the pitching staff, and I think Hawley's got a huge job this year to manage. As I said, we've got the NC Dinos guys, we've got some Americans, we've got Australians, we've got plumbers, we've got painters, we've got electricians, whatever it is. We've got guys with jobs, and we've got to try and find a way to how does Hawley really control that pitching staff, so when guys come in, they know what they've got to do, they can execute what they need to execute, and have the greatest opportunity for success. So, I mean, you saw it with DSAN, you saw it with we've been blessed. You go back to the 90s, you've got John Moore, Gavin Edmondson, Michael Moyle. You move into the more recent eras, you've got your DSAN Miguel that we probably took for granted, to be honest. You just stick him back there and don't worry about it. He's got you covered, and you can sit him for 10 plus years, 12 years behind the dish. And Matt Kennelly was the backup who played AAA baseball for the Braves. And then you had Chris House as a young kid that couldn't even get a sniff, because even though he played high A and whatever else for the Blue Jays. So, and then you got Alex Hall who came through, and again that cycle that there was a time when it might have been the only time in 14 years that we didn't make playoffs in the ABL, in the recent ABL, is a crossover from, we sort of changed the relationship with the Baltimore Orioles started to fade, their outcomes changed, but we also made a bit of a decision to run really young. Alex Hall, I think Bajarski, I think Bowie was really young, Jesse Williams, the 4 or 5 guys that may be 18 years of age playing in the Perth Heat roster and getting regular at-bats, regular experience and regular game time. And again, flashback 2006, it sort of had that same sort of feeling about how do we expedite the development process for Alex Hall and these younger guys to be able to lead for hopefully getting 15 years playing for the Perth Heat. But you do that by starting them when they're 17 and you throw them in there and hopefully you don't burn them. That is a really challenging part when the quality of the league is, it's probably, if you even it out, it's probably high A. It's probably a high A level pro baseball with some sniffs of double A at times, depending on which roster. And there's some sniffs of rookie ball, depending on the game of the week and whatever else. It's a big variation, but it's also managing matchups, and that's the challenge that Andy's got as well. And I think he's done a great job over the last, 7 or 8 years is making sure we get the right guys in to get the right matchups when, I think it's pretty, if you're going to roll out a big league arm and throw in a couple of 17-year-olds in the back end of your lineup, it's nice, but it's tough.
It's a really good point as to what you said earlier, Hughesy, and I love it because when we're talking about who's going to take this team, on over, and once all the guys that have been there for so long sort of decide to hang it up, and look, I hope they don't do it soon because I enjoyed last season getting to watch all these guys play. It's been awesome, but it's a really good point, and my head instantly went to Alex Halls and that, but that is such a great quartet of guys, and there's more than that, right? There's more Aussie guys there. Like I'm sure, I'm sure the guys in there are going to turn to a guy like Bowie and that, but that whole good core of Aussie guys and they're Perth guys, to be in there to take that team into the next generation of heaters, I think is pretty exciting. So it's going to be an exciting season, mate. And I tell you what, it was a heartbreaker. Being there on the Friday night for the championship game 1 was sick. It was amazing. It was also a personal great thing for me because Paul Latta was on the plate and I got to absolutely abuse him and no one really cared. So that was really good for me. But it was amazing to see the Perth Heat get up and win that. But unfortunately, didn't quite get it done in games 2 and 3. But hey, this year, mate, let's hope.
You got to be in it to win it, and all we can do is get there, and then they let the guys do the rest of it. And yeah, hopefully the hunger and the guys will find a way to make it work this year and bring home a championship. I think it was 16th championship, I think it would be. So that'll be nice to bring that back to WA.
It'd be amazing, mate. And look, we appreciate your time. Like, we understand that you've got to get going. But mate, awesome having you on. Good luck for this season. And also, good luck in B grade, mate. I'll see you tomorrow for training.
I don't train, mate. I'll see
Take
you on
care,
Sunday,
mate.
maybe
Thank
at the
you.
club. See you guys. Thanks.
I'll be there training. You probably won't be, but yeah, no, that's good.
Love you, mate. Love you, Lachlan. Chocolate.
All good.
Going back. This ball's back.